I'd love to, Emily, reactions from people who see this film and get to meet this wonderful person. I'm curious, can you share with us, because it's been a few months since we've last seen you, what are some of the reactions people have given to the film? I think it's one of the more positive views of someone's story, figuring out who they are and their capabilities.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think people are surprised by what the film is, the ways that we get to know Bebe through the film. It's been an overwhelmingly positive reaction, and people have told us, even people who are close to Bebe or were huge fans of Drag Race have said to us that they had no idea that Bebe came from Cameroon, that things were like that in Cameroon. They didn't really have a sense of Bebe's family and how supportive and incredible they have been on their journey to accept his unusual career path. And I think just it's been so much love. I'm just so humbled by all of it. We tried really hard to create a whole portrait of this person that we've come to be so close to personally, and just do justice to his story and his family's story.
Appreciate you allowing your friendship to be told, because I do think it's obviously a very personal relationship you have to each other. Do you mind if I ask how you guys came about and that story?
Sure, thank you. So I am a full-time producer and executive producer. I'm based in San Francisco, and I've done a lot of queer and LGBTQ movies, and that's one of the areas of interest that's been a real focus for my work for many years. And Emily sort of found me because of my work in that area through a mutual colleague named Ann Rose, who had been an early assembly editor on a different phase of the movie. This movie has, Emily said, many settings, has been going on for now 15 years. So Emily has been filming with Bebe Zahara since 2006, and it is 2022. I am the producer that came on for the way I describe it for the last mile, so the last sort of 4 years, and really helping Emily, through all of the post-production, the final pickup shoots, the final fundraising, all the, getting the movie done during a pandemic, which was a very intense and creative time, together and with Bebe, just, birthing this movie, during COVID. I've been telling this story more lately that, one of the things that happened to us was that COVID forced us to slow down. We thought we were on a certain timeline to try and enter festivals in 2020, and I think we were pushing for that, and then it sort of forced us to kind of evaluate, our story and how we wanted to present it and really make it very contemporary for the moment of 2020. And so the movie that you see is really a sort of response to the creative challenges that the pandemic, put in front of us to figure out how to tell this story, working remotely and getting it done. But our relationship has been very collaborative and creative. We have another producer named Jonathan Goodman-Levitt, who's also been a huge part of our journey. Emily has had different collaborators over the 15 years, that have helped her in different ways. And it's magical when all those people show up at the screenings that we've been having, and all these years later get to see, this beautiful final product that we're so happy to be, have been able to screen it now 30 festivals on 4 continents.
Wow, that's crazy. I've got to ask, we're in an interesting time in our country where it's progressive for a lot of the arts and a lot of voices out there, and yet it's peeling back almost the opposite way with legislations. I live in Texas, and what we're doing to people is downright despicable. I'm curious, putting a movie out in that environment, because I know it's not what you intended to do, how much do you feel that your movie is impactful for that, not just telling of his story into who he's become, but this can change lives just by giving the voice out there. How important is that?
Well, it's incredibly important to me, and to both of us and all of us, and to Bebe. The movie that you make is not separate from the time in which it is released. You enter into a marketplace, and the conditions and the political and ideological, cultural concerns of that moment impact how it's going to be responded to both by the press and the public. So, of course, we're mindful that this is an environment of anti-trans legislation. Of course, we're mindful that the Black Lives Matter movement, came to its most important moment in 2020 after George Floyd. Our film leans into all of that by design and by intention, because it's also a moment that we all shared, trying to finish the movie. And now that this continues to unfold with urgency, of course we want our film to be able to be a part of those conversations where and when that it can. Emily has been working very hard on an international impact campaign with nonprofit partners, where we want to partner and help, in places around the world, especially where LGBTQ people's civil rights are always under attack. They may not have the basic civil protections. But to your point, with a light switch, we could lose those same protections here in the U.S. if we're not always vigilant and diligent about fighting for our rights and trying to make sure that we take care of each other. So if a film that I have ever produced can partner in, even in a small way, in supporting those kinds of conversations to protect our communities, to get us talking about each other, empowering each other, helping each other remain visible and empowered, is really the reason why I make films.
100%. And just to add on to that, I think it was really important to us to provide an uplifting and really positive representation of a Black, non-conforming, immigrant drag performer and his loving, educated, spiritual family. Like, just that positivity and that uplift, it's a real gift to that we're hoping to offer to different people. I think BEBE challenges stereotypes that unfortunately still exist about drag performers, about immigrants, about Black people, about queer people. So I think the more that we can do to sort of subvert expectations and open minds, I think the happier we'll be with. And that's why we're working so hard on impact, and internationally and domestically. We're really hoping to partner with grassroots organizations and maybe even bring in BEBE for some mentorship kinds of opportunities with young people in the U.S.
When we first talked, I asked you what was BEBE's reaction, and you said it was kind of tough because when he saw himself, it was obviously a different view than anyone else could ever have, and it maybe have been it's a tearing of a layer of skin of exposure. I'm curious, now that I just heard that, the mentorship, how has he changed his view of the importance of his story and the way you've told it?
I think he really has come around to be incredibly grateful that we went on this journey together and that he decided to be as vulnerable as he was with me on the journey. I think he sees it. He's getting the responses from people who tell them that it meant something to them to see themselves represented in him. And people from all backgrounds feel represented by BEBE's story. It's really interesting to me who connects with it. So I think he still does have layers of self-protection, and we explore that in the film, and we explore why that might be. And but he really did. He shared a lot. He opened up a lot, and it was also a big gift to all of us.
He's definitely got a strength, though. I don't want to make it seem like BEBE's weak. That's a warrior.
And that's almost what's hard about it, right? Is that he is so strong. He is so accomplished. Like, how do you tell a story then that has conflict, that is compelling for 90 minutes? We didn't want to make something that was a highlight reel of this very successful, accomplished person who's not like a damaged, tortured soul. Like, he is very strong and loved and confident. And I think the more we all can embody our inner BEBEs and like find that empowerment in ourselves, like the better the world would be. He's really an inspiration.
Just to add to that, if I may, BEBE allowed Emily to be there with cameras, though, at some very low lows in his life, and really, the kind of stuff where you're breaking down and crying because you're really breaking down and crying because your career is not going great. You have to move back home to be close to family because you don't know what your next move's going to be, and I think that because the ultimate journey for BEBE is really one of triumph, and we've been so fortunate to sort of telegraph the whole journey, right? The ups, the downs, but where it finally lands for BEBE is really in an up and joyous place. And I think what BEBE and Emily and I have seen in this release of our film at festivals so far is that really is BEBE's story. BEBE is really in a triumphant place, and he is, going to keep doing this and getting better and better and better at it.
I'd love to wrap up with talking about that festival circuit, talking specifically about bringing it here to Oxford, a festival that is very much in the South, very much in a state that has its own southern confusion at times, and yet one of the most progressive festivals we've ever covered and joyously come back every year. What does it mean to be here at this festival, and what are you hoping people see from their perspective of your film?
Well, I'm thrilled to be here at Oxford. It's one of the festivals I've heard about over the years as being a place that's really a wonderful experience for filmmakers to gather and have their work be seen and appreciated. So we're just thrilled to have been invited. And yeah, I mean, something that somebody said, a very close advisor of BB's is a pastor in the South. And, or no, she's not a pastor, she's Bishop Tania Rawls. And she was saying when she was on stage with one of our Q&As that this is a film about the prejudice that still exists in the global South, but we can't forget that this prejudice still exists in the domestic U.S. South as well. And it's a battle. It's an ongoing battle. We cannot take the rights that we have for granted, and we still have a ways to go. So, I really hope that this reaches some people who would otherwise not have known about it in Oxford and the region.
I don't know anyone who could see this film and not be moved positively, so that's my personal.
Yeah, I mean, every festival provides an opportunity for a film to continue to, expand its profile, to create awareness, to develop a, potential for more audience and more awareness. So I'm always, delighted when festivals invite my films. This festival has shown a couple other films of mine in the past, and so I've always wanted to come and also just, see it firsthand. And especially now, that we're kind of, really coming out of the pandemic, you want to accept these in-person invitations to be in community together with people, because this is our industry, and if we don't come together in person, we're not really doing it right? So in that sense, it's always great to be in person. It's always great to be in the unexpected places where, the audience is there, but you just have to just remind them sometimes that, we're making films for you. And I think that it's these small festivals, we had lovely interactions with other filmmaker guests. We've gotten to connect with the local people who live here too, and that's just a lovely, wonderful way to experience your job. So I feel grateful to be here.
Mark, Emily, thank you for the time. I don't want to keep you from your Q&A. It's always a pleasure to talk with people who are passionate about what they do, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.